Hi, everybody, and welcome to eLearnChat. You've got me, Lesley Price, as your host today. That's Lesley Price of www.learnappeal.com. And I'm so delighted today that we've got a couple of good friends of mine. And as we all know, eLearnChat is all about sharing and knowledge. So let's get chatting soon with Adam and Lisa. Hi, bit of a changeover today, folks. You've got me, Lesley Price, as your host. And with me today, I'm delighted to say I've got two really good friends of mine, Adam Weisblatt and Lisa Goldstein. Hi, Adam and Lisa. Great to see you.
Thanks for having us, Lesley.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I know we're on different sides of the pond, but we've known each other for quite a long time now. And I'm delighted to welcome you both here today. To talk about what you've been doing at Nielsen and the innovations and the importance of innovation and change and the impact it's having, but particularly with it being learner-centric. So who's going to kick us off? Is it Adam or is it Lisa?
I think I will. Lisa and I were talking after she did your show about all of the different ideas that we've been kicking around at Nielsen over the years. And what we wanted to do is, instead of just show, technologies, talk about the conversation, because all technologies start with a conversation between human beings. And we wanted to kind of give sort of a round robin, a very quick view of a lot of different projects, but talk about how these things came about so that we could give your users some juice to come up with their own ideas.
No, that's great. One of the things that I've always described myself as is an expert in translation, because when you work in learning technologies, you actually not only have to understand the language of senior management, you've got to understand the language that learners understand. You've got to understand the language that those that are delivering the learning understand. And you've got to understand the language of IT. So it's great that you're talking, that you're going to be talking about user-centric stuff, because that really does bring in the whole translation world, if you want to talk about it in these terms. So over to you, Adam.
And Lesley, we were, Adam and I were just talking about reflecting over our last 6 years together and thinking about all the great things that Adam and I have done together. And we were talking about how some of these ideas, when we first brought them to the table, the leaders were a little bit slow in adopting the ideas, thinking that maybe some of these ideas were a little bit flashy and unnecessary. And now, years later, because the adoption and the effectiveness was so high, now some of these things are items that can't be lived without. When we go forward with projects, those are the kinds of details that they say must be, top of the list. Make sure it also is, for example, mobile ready, right? 6 years ago, when Adam and I were first looking at mobile, for example, it was interesting because yeah, we do. We have a visual here. And it was fascinating because our stakeholders, felt like maybe it's not 100% necessary to do some of these things on mobile, even though we have a population at the company, a third of the population, that don't have the benefit of sitting down in front of a computer. They just engage with the company on mobile, or they come in for a special circumstance on a borrowed laptop somewhere at a facility that typically doesn't belong to them. They have to make a special trip for the learning, and it's fascinating.
We also have a group of a very high population of millennials in our company, so they kind of expect things to be mobile ready. It's not even an issue for them, and it's a sort of a chicken and egg thing that Lisa's saying, where you know, they're saying, well, you know, people don't look at mobile, but if we don't have anything to show, of course they're not looking. We have to show it first. So Lisa, can you describe the project that you have on that slide that you worked on?
Yeah, actually, we should technically back up a slide and look at really the foundation, right? Because I think that in order to experience mobile, first, you know, most importantly, the system itself needs to be mobile ready, because if you start with just the content, right, then if they're struggling to get to that content in the first place and it's not mobile ready, then, you know, it's not going to work well for the user. And I think it's so brilliant what you did, Adam, you know, working with SealWorks to create this platform. I think that, you know, since this is something that you led, I think it'd be great if you talked about this, because I think it was so brilliant what you created.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, it all, you know, mobile was the given, but also when we talk to individuals, when we talk to focus groups and the actual learners, not the training people, but the learners, they told us, you know, if we know what we want, get out of our way. We want to have a really robust search engine. So SealWorks was able to build in that search engine you saw that works on any system that predicts what you're going to want to look for. And then they said, if we don't know what we want, we need the guidance. And so you see the feature below where it walks you through the common things that people need to. You want to go next and talk about the individual project?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so, I love that My Learning is so accessible on mobile. And so once we had that platform, Adam and I knew we needed to fill it with content. So that slide that we saw at first, you know, where we have the two course examples, these are two really not only mobile ready, but just really engaging and draws you in. SealWorks is actually responsible both for our custom My Learning platform that Adam was showing off, that is an interface between the learning management system and the learners themselves, so that it enhances that experience better than our learning management system could. And then these are some examples of some phenomenal, engaging, really easy to consume on mobile courses that were tied to not just this one program, these one-time learning experiences, but it tied to initiatives with the company and other platforms on innovation and being more green in the company. And we took these to DevLearn and MLearnCon and a few other events where we were able to showcase it to others in the industry to see, you know, sort of a reaction. You know, we thought it was absolutely fabulous. Our company responded so well to it. Nielsen loved it. The users reacted well to it, and the industry. You know, 6 years ago, mobile learning was somewhat new, right, Adam? And it, you know, had such a great response from the industry, and we were lucky enough to walk away from multiple events with awards for some of the products that we created, including go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's interesting that when you're talking there, you're talking about learners. And as far as I know, the only people in a company that ever refer to employees, staff, colleagues as learners are the people who work in learning and development. So is that also a language issue that we have, a terminology issue that we have? Because if you ask people in an organization, if you ask all the people that are looking at this, you know, this mobile, you know, learning thing that you've got, the last thing they would talk about themselves as is learners. Learners,
I think it's all about
their kids.
Well, I think,
yeah, right.
I think that's what happened. That's a good segue into what happened next, Lesley, because you're right. It's not just about learners using mobile. It's about, you know, employees and how, you know, this extends. And so I think that the successes we had really led to Lisa's next project, which was the Nielsen Experience app, which is a much more holistic thing for employees, like you say, not just learners.
And to Leslie's point,
that's great, because
and
I think that one of the big problems we have, those of us who work in learning and development, learning technologies training, is we refer to people in the organization as learners, but they don't think of themselves that way. They think
and I
of
think it's really
themselves
about,
by their
and I think
job
it's really about
title or their job role.
and I think it's really about the audience, right? You know, we're speaking with you, Lesley, and we're speaking with those who watch this show. So we like to use that terminology based on our audience. But of course, when we talk to stakeholders or to others, you know, we probably would use different language based on who it is our audience is. But in this particular example that Adam's calling out, this is a phenomenal piece of work that we really enjoyed putting together. We used an agile approach. We spent time talking to employees across the company to find out what were they missing back when our intranet wasn't so mobile ready. When we're talking about that population, that third of the company that doesn't engage with the company in a way where they have a laptop on the go or sitting down comfortably at a desk and using a computer to access information to engage with the company. If all they have is a mobile device, what do they need on the go? What were their needs? And so we developed a mobile app that picked the top features off of our company intranet that you would normally sit down comfortably at a computer with. And we put that information in the palm of the employee's hands. And that went over very well until kind of like how the Telegraph put the Pony Express out of business. Once we switched over to Google as a shop with all of our products, then our intranet became mobile ready, and therefore they no longer needed that mobile app. But while that need existed, while the need was there, we found a way, and we had a great time creating a very dynamic, engaging mobile app that had wonderful feedback from our employees.
And
what I like there is that heading where you say about aligning with business objectives. That to me, in learning and development, is absolutely mission critical. It has to be. And I can see you both there nodding. So, Adam.
Yeah, and also using the agile, software development technique of getting things out fast that people need. So even though there was this window of need that was temporary, we didn't spend a year building something that only lived for a year. We spent a very, very short time, and it met the need while the need was actually there.
I think that business objectives are critical, really mission critical.
And I think that as we're exploring, as Adam and I work together, and we're trying to figure out, when we invent something, when we bring these innovations forward, I think it really does start with that, Lesley, because I find so many times we see businesses that say, I see this flashy new trend, this thing is hot and new, find a problem and go apply it to that. And I think Adam and I do a pretty darn good job of looking at business needs first and looking at it from the perspective of SMART goals even. Or how can we verbalize and say down to the root cause, what is it that we need? And I think a lot of what we do, a lot of the things that Adam and I invent are good at that. And sometimes we'll find an unconventional way to approach those problems. And I think that's a really good lead into something we want to share with you, because we did something fun. And Adam really needs to tell the story about how this character was devised. But we did something that was just an absolute viral hit with the employees at Nielsen. And I think we need to show the visual before Adam explains.
Sure.
Go with it.
So this is kind of bring your puppet to work day. Basically, when I left my last company, my coworkers knew that I was a big Muppet fan, and they got me a Muppet that looks like me. And when we were trying to figure out how we were going to get people to know about all of these great things we were creating, I I said, well, I have this puppet. And so we created a series of videos where this puppet named Henry is sort of a curmudgeon and he's against everything. And it was a way of playing against Lisa, sort of his straight man. She's the one trying to encourage him to take on new things. And that little battle of resistance is something that people really were able to relate to and have a lot of fun with. So the videos, were very popular, and it was a fun way for me to be creative. And having those videos accessible and be able to put them up, have the tools and put them up really fast was a great tool.
Yeah, the way that Lesley, the way that Adam describes this is great, because we were looking at employee behavior. We were trying to say, what kind of behavior do we want to change? And some of it was, this idea of behavior, of being slow to adopt something. They couldn't see the value in it. So we watched Henry the Muppet portray that feeling of, being grouchy about having to do some sort of paperwork or utilize some new resource that supposedly was going to be useful, but sounds like more work. And so then we showed in the videos, here's really truly how easy and wonderful it was. And it seemed to be extremely effective. We saw a big change in behavior.
No, I think the use of characters, I think, is brilliant, because not only for the millennials, the ones who maybe don't have kids yet. I've got my children are millennials, if you want to put that name on them. But they still talk about the characters, the cartoon characters that they loved as kids, whether that be Winnie the Pooh or the Muppets or, whatever it is, Minions, whatever it is now. With my kids, it was, with my daughter, it was Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore and Piglet. With my son, it was, Fireman Sam and, all that stuff. And they still refer to these characters, even though they're all grown up. So I can totally understand.
What's so great? What's so great about kids when they're falling in love with their favorite stories, and characters. They always have like the little figurines, little dolls, something, stuffed animal that represents their character. And Adam took that to the next level. Look what he did. So if you look at this next slide, Adam, tell them about Flat Henry.
So there's this thing. I don't know whether it's just in the U.S. or not, but it's called Flat Stanley, where grade school children send out this picture of a character in the mail and goes around the world. And we thought, well, we have social media, we could use this. We use Google Plus, and we sent out a post and told people to print out this Flat Stanley, cut them out, and put them in different places. It was a way of getting people to show their office and their part of the world, and it really was a great idea of bringing people together. So we had people from all over the world, like many countries, sending us these pictures of Flat Stanley. It was loads of fun.
And we're protecting the privacy.
I think it's great, because you're also adding in a bit of humor to it. And I think within storytelling, humor actually has to be part of it. It has to be part of it.
And it had a big impact on culture, because people took to it and they loved Henry. And Henry was so popular, he became a meme. So we were seeing him pop up all over social media internally with Henry. So that was fantastic. It was really, really well received. So I think that we did a good job of helping Henry to become transformative for our company.
So then what happened? Where did it go next?
Well,
Adam, I love
Henry a break, but we went on to we really latched onto this idea that people were looking for new kinds of experiences. So we started looking at virtual reality and augmented reality. Is that the next slide, I think?
Well, I think we were going to talk about how much fun you had. You kept the fun momentum going. You kept people engaged with these really fabulous ways to engage them on social media internally.
Yeah, because you can, and we didn't ask for permission. We just created things. So I created this back to school community on Google Plus, and kind of had, questions and prizes and animations and jokes and just to keep people engaged and connected, so that when it was time to say, okay, now it's time to use, whatever learning program we wanted them to use, that they already knew about it. They would come, right on board. So it did raise the usage of the learning portal.
And I think we did a really good job keeping the people happy, so to speak. And then we wanted to make sure we're also keeping the leaders happy. And so Adam and I have been exploring all these great ideas of what more do the leaders want. Leaders love data. Leaders love to talk about ROI. Leaders love to see better data. On top of that, we're also entering into a space. I know we're preaching to the choir, talking to a learning group and learning industry here, but with microlearning, the need to not just deliver programs and e-learning and these longer sections of material, but we also need the quick hits. We need to be able to be right there with performance support, whether that means videos, quick documents, quick hits of information. And Google, where Nielsen is lucky enough to be one of the first users of Google at Work and a part of the advisory board even to have conversations. And so Nielsen was successful in being a part of influencing Google. And out of that experience, we now have the ability to turn Google Drive into an LRS, which is absolutely fantastic, because I know there's a lot of companies out there right now who are spending large dollar amounts on LRS if they want to get into that place. And Google Drive now functions as an already included, and we already have it, no extra cost type of situation where between Google Drive. Go ahead,
a real important part of this is, this idea of getting learning into the flow of work. We take people away from work to get them into a classroom or to get them onto the LMS. Whereas since everyone's working in Google and Google Drive is their way of collaborating, to have the learning right there in Google Drive means that they don't have to leave and interrupt. They can go right into the learning, and we don't lose that data. We can still capture it using Google Data Studio. So that was pretty exciting.
So can I just clarify there, when you're talking about LRS, are you talking about a learning record system?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So a learning record store.
And can you maybe explain to people, because a lot of people might not have actually heard of LRS. They understand LMS and they understand learning analytics, but they maybe don't understand LRS.
Sure. So the learning record store is part of a bigger initiative, XAPI, the Experience API, the ability to not just capture completions, but to capture what users or learners do when they're looking at content. And, the question is that you'd have to set up a learning record store database somewhere and connect to it from your content. Whereas in this situation, it's already done. We don't even need XAPI. We just have the data that's always being captured about, how many times people look at a video or how long they look at the video or the content. And we can use that to gauge whether it's effective or not. And it's all in our closed system. So it's not a privacy issue.
Yeah, so it's secure.
Right.
So where did that all lead to then? What came next?
So this idea of having Google as our platform really took off. We have our learning management system. You need that as the record of source for compliance and training and things like that. But by having everybody working in Google, there was this whole other set of tools made available. So we used something called Google App Script, and I created a program that sends people emails after they've taken a instructor-led course, and the emails actually, the system sends them on behalf of the instructor. So imagine you take a class, you know, it's a couple weeks later, you've forgotten all about it, and all of a sudden you get an email from your instructor with all these great resources to follow up about the class. People have been saying, hey, this is exactly what I needed. And having the system just up and running, ready to use the Google infrastructure makes it very easy to accomplish, because we're in Gmail and we configure it using Google spreadsheets.
And I just want to mention too that Data Studio is so powerful because you can pull information from all the different sources, right? So we can pull in and combine the type of information that you get out of reporting from the LMS, what we get out of, you know, all of these different places, and we can visualize just about anything that we want to. So all of the kind of work that we've been doing is easy to be seen by our stakeholders in analytics, and we can tell the stories about the ROI behind it.
So having data and analytics is great. It's wonderful. But how does that then influence what you actually do? It's all very well having facts and figures, but what impact does that have? How does it change things? How does it move things forward?
Well, if we were going to go back to the original topic that we were saying with mobile at the top of the conversation, it's interesting how stakeholders didn't think would be necessary. How many people would possibly consume it? Everybody goes to they only see people consuming on a computer. How could they possibly be interested in mobile? And then to later be able to see the analytics of how much people are utilizing mobile and seeing those numbers spike the more that we have resources available. You know, if you build it, they will come, sort of a thing. That's where I think that we saw analytics motivate behavior.
And to your point, Lesley, we have a saying in our group, don't collect data that you don't plan on acting on. So we're very specific about, you got to be able to take action. Now, the problem with the data that we're capturing is that we don't do these actions in isolation. You don't learn in isolation from work. You're working, you're doing a lot of things, you're accessing content, and so the data is not always, you know, the data is kind of all over the place, and people get overwhelmed and a little skeptical of. But what I think is that when you can see changes in data, that's the key. So if you see that a certain set of you put out a certain set of programs and you see a spike in usage, then you know you're on the right track. If you see it start to drop off, you know that you're not, you know, engaging people enough. It's the changes in data that you're using to take action.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point, because so often people just collect data for the sake of it. But to me, there always has to be a point to collecting information. You know,
Amen.
it's I'll be polite. So I won't say what I was going to say. But it was Jane. It was Jane Hart that gave me the acronym, the you know, SFI or SFW, whatever. You know, that has to be. So what? So what? Right. It's that question. It's the so what question. So it's great that you've actually been using data, not just to collect it, but actively to positively use it, and then for that to influence you on the next changes that, you know.
And to your earlier point, Lesley, when we were talking about driving business needs, that goes back to the earlier point of why it's so important to have the SMART business goals and the SMART goals around performance that we want to change, because then after we have some data from not just our systems, you know, did they learn, did they consume learning, but also behavior. You know, if we can do anything to measure pre and post behavior, so we can see whether or not anything moved with the measuring stick very specifically, and we have to know specifically what we're measuring, something that's measurable.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical. So then what next?
Yeah, do you want to see some fun things that we've been exploring? All right, Adam, do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. Lisa brought a company to us called Bully Entertainment a few years back, and they do some amazing things with augmented reality. Now, augmented reality is when you're looking at your device and it's using the camera to show you the environment you're in, but adding things. You may have seen this in museums, Pokemon Go, where you can see the little Pokemon walking around the screen, and these are used a lot for like helping people know how to operate a fire extinguisher or something like that. But when we're trying to teach people about more abstract things that are involved in in the future of the company, we're trying to get people engaged with these ideas. I think we can also use these tools to get people's imaginations fired up. And so I did this kind of mock-up here. Imagine you're in a meeting and they hand out this this poster for this new initiative that they want to get you excited about. And when you look at it on your device, a person comes up out of the poster and starts telling you about what it is that you're seeing. It's all to try to get that kind of human connection and interaction by not just putting something in front of people's faces, but having somebody actually talk about it with them in an engaging way. So we're always looking for ways to do that. We also got involved a lot in virtual reality. Now that's where you're going to put on a headset. And the thing is, people think of these big headsets with it's all plugged into some video game, but now you can get these $5 cardboard. They're called Google Cardboard headsets that you put your phone in, and it's very easy. And there's a bit of a feeling like, well, is this just kind of clicky bling bling, as Cami Bean says, or is there a purpose? And I think the purpose is that people need to get away from their environment and be immersed in what they're learning, because we need to get their attention. There's so many things going on around them, and by doing the virtual reality, they can kind of get immersed in that world. So I did
put them in the driver's seat
here, where we send people to stores all over the world to see what people are buying. So I did a 360-degree picture of a store and showed people where they're supposed to get what they're supposed to do in that store. But also not just something physical. What about just concepts? I don't know about you, Lesley, but when I see process maps, my brain just goes fuzzy because there's boxes and lines all over the place. It's like this big spaghetti diagram. What if we took that diagram and just stretched it out a bit so it's a little easier to see, and put it inside a 360 image so that you can actually really look and see the process flow without it being so overwhelming? So these are just, like I said before, these are experiments we're doing. People could say, oh, well, will this be used or not? You don't know until you start, trying out little things and showing them around to people, and getting them interested, because this may lead to another idea for use of the tool.
Yeah, because there's no guarantee.
We're kind of coming to the end of time. So is there anything else? Are there other things you want to particularly cover?
I was just going to quickly say, there's no guarantee that, something will take off, to Adam's point. And, there was no guarantee that for sure mobile was going to be something that was going to work well with our company. But, it's good that we're getting out there and tinkering and trying, because it's good to see what, sticks when you throw it against the wall. And I think Adam and I do a really good job of trying out all of these different technologies and ideas and connections together, because I think we're so passionate about meeting the needs of the modern learner. So, and approaching things in unconventional ways, if it helps to change behavior better, than some of the traditional methods.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
What about you, Adam? Anything else?
Joining the dots, I think, is incredibly important, and that seems to be an awful lot of what you're doing.
Do you think we missed anything super important, Adam?
Oh, a whole bunch. That's okay. Lesley, thanks
Yeah, we
for
can be
letting
here
us be.
with you.
No, you'll have to
I know.
come on
Thanks
again.
for letting us do some show and tell.
You'll have to come on again. You'll have to come on again. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to seeing what things are going to happen. And you never know, maybe you'll be coming over to Learning Technologies in London to share it with us then. Well, otherwise, you know, the guys at Learning Technologies now run DevLearn and Learning Solutions. So maybe I might catch up out there. You never know.
Right.
Anyway,
awesome.
Thanks again, guys.
Hopefully we will.
Great to see you, and hope to have you on again soon. Thanks everybody for joining us. There will be show notes at the end. So thanks very much, guys. Bye.
Have a great day.